Hello everyone, this is Powell Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got a wicked storm coming with severe storms and possible tornadoes, plus a battle zone starts to form late next week, and we'll take a look at the overall big picture. So let's take a look at the overall setup this morning, and we've been dealing with this upper level low that's essentially stalled out into portions of New Mexico and West Texas, dumping some heavier snows for that region. And then out ahead of it, that's where all the moisture is, with all the heavier rains there's going to be looking to unfold over the next day or two, while the rest of the country is fairly on the drier side. Let's take a look at the overall temperatures this morning as well. We had Arctic air move through, but it's somewhat kind of moderated and more or less rebounded. It's not as cold as it has been, so there's not even an area that's actually below zero at the moment, but still on the chillier side for late November time frame. But it's definitely going to be cold enough to have those winter storm and even, yes, you're reading that correctly, blizzard warning in far west Texas. This is up in the Guadalupe Mountains. It's pretty elevated out there, 5, 6, 7,000 feet, but nonetheless, that's kind of rare to see a blizzard warning in the state of Texas. But some heavier snows in a good chunk of New Mexico. I think even Lubbock gets in the action, maybe in a 1 or 2 inches for them. But yeah, some definitely decent snows out in this region out here in far west Texas and eastern portions of New Mexico. But out ahead of it, there's going to be just some more heavier rain. We're going to be moving back into Texas just for that upper level low that's just really not going to go anywhere anytime soon. It stalls out, but it's finally going to be on the move. And when it does, it's going to be some heavier rains, even some flash flooding rains down here in the portions of the deep south of Texas, where they had 3 or 4 inches in some of these areas yesterday, and they're going to be adding to these totals. So definitely concerning for flooding risk, with that moderate excessive risk unfolding this afternoon. As we take a look at the rest of the country going into tomorrow, again, that upper level low finally is on the move. It basically goes right over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You still have that chillier rain in place, but the rain will extend in some sporadic thunderstorms at times. Good chunk of the deep south heading into the Tennessee Valley, but as it spreads into more of the Ohio Valley, it's just more or less into a rain event. But back behind it, we'll be watching another cold front that's going to be diving in from the northwest. That'll bring back the snows for a good chunk of Idaho into Montana, back into Wyoming, and that will reach Colorado. Even portions of Denver will start to see some snow again. But as we go into Sunday, that system continues to lift eastbound. That'll bring the showers and thunderstorms along the East Coast into Georgia, back into the Carolinas, into Virginia, and then just kind of a all rain, not heavier amounts, but still moderate enough to bring some decent showers in this region while this storm system starts to wind down. And then we'll have that new storm system again entering the Pacific Northwest, increasing the snowfall rates for them, even heavier snows once you get into the higher elevations of Idaho into Montana there. So as we head into Monday, so we'll go into Monday timeframe now, this system will be slowly leaving from the northeast. There's not much cold air left with this, only snow into the far extreme portions of New England here, but you can definitely see the freezing line that lifts well up into Canada, and that's north of that line. It's definitely going to be cold enough to snow, but we're going to be starting to see some really true Arctic air starting to build as we get into next week time frame. But at the same time, we're going to be watching the midsection of the country also significantly warm up in a big way as well. So I saw, these temperatures were well into the 50s this afternoon, but they soar into the 70s, if not approaching 80 degrees in some of these areas into the deep south. But you can definitely see the temperature anomalies with that Arctic air plunging from the northwest with those 30 below average temperature anomalies. And where that clash is, that temperature gradient, that's going to spell severe storms as we head into, say, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night time frame. So let's break this down. So we're going to have yet another upper level low going to be traversing across and really start to impact portions of New Mexico again. that's where it's going to form into Tuesday afternoon. But out ahead of it, we got that warm sector, so we won't be talking about chilly rain anymore. We're going to be talking about some severe storms that could unfold in portions of East Texas, going into Arkansas, portions of Louisiana. But to the north of that, where that drags down that Arctic air, we're going to have a fairly decent snowstorm breaking out for the upper Midwest region. So let's break this thing down for you, because as that system comes across, it taps into this moisture. You got the southwest winds. As soon as the winds turn around, that brings the moisture back into play, and this is definitely concerning. Typically, you only need about 55 degrees on the dew points to say, hey, this is strong enough to produce showers and thunderstorms. You got the lift. But when you start to see upper 60s and right at 70, if not low 70s, that is definitely concerning, because you're going to have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere with that upper level low that's going to be coming across. It could be spinning at the same time. That's going to be a concern for possible severe weather and possible tornadoes. And it's also concerning that the Storm Prediction Center had that day 7 risk, moved to day 6. Now it's a day 5 risk, and they actually increased it. So this is definitely rare from the Storm Prediction Center to do this so far out. And they got to be pretty certain in this type of setup. And based on a lot of the ensembles right now, this is what we're looking at. Could be looking at least an enhanced risk for severe storms in parts of Louisiana, heading into Arkansas, going into Mississippi. But this whole area of East Texas into Arkansas, going into Mississippi, heading up into portions of western Tennessee, will definitely have to keep high alert on this system, because this will probably going to be increasing. We could at least probably see a moderate risk by the time this unfolds. And you remember that tornado outbreak that started November in East Texas, we've got some similar dynamics. So this is definitely concerning that this is looking so ripe this far out, and it's still 5 days out. So we'll be definitely fine-tuning this along the way. But to the northwest of there, we're going to have some snow, because there's Arctic air trailing on the backside. So we're going to have some decent snows going to be breaking out into Nebraska, into South Dakota, heading into portions of Minnesota. But there's the tight isobars underneath with those severe storms that are going to be breaking out to the south side of that region. That as we move into Wednesday, we're going to have that squall line move through. So the significant day, I feel, is Tuesday. So once we go into Wednesday, there's too much uncertainty if this is going to be severe or not. But right now, we got a squall line of showers and thunderstorms heading through portions of the Tennessee Valley, going into the east and portions of West Virginia. And then the snow line pushes well north. That heads up into portions of Michigan, as well as into Canada. You can see the low pressure center of that 978 millibar low pressure. This will continue to lift northeast. So there's not going to be much snow, if anything, for the northeast with this particular system, but much rain for that region, as we'll be watching our next storm system with that Arctic air moving in from the northwest, with more snows coming back into picture for Washington and Oregon, and heading into Idaho, as well as into Montana by then. But there's the rain setup for the next 5, 6, 7 days. So comes across Texas, the deeper reds here, based on the graph here, you can see that's why we have that moderate risk for excessive rainfall for the Houston Metroplex and points southward into the deep south of Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama, parts into Georgia. We could be looking at easily 4 to 6 inches of rain just over the next 5 to 6 days. So definitely some flooding concerns down into the deep south. But yeah, this is a pretty good rain swath that's going to be coming across over the next 5 and 6 days. And then we'll have, of course, the atmospheric river coming back into play as well into the Pacific Northwest. But there's the snow. So we got the heavier snows right now for the next day or two. This will wind down, but there's some fairly decent snows out here into West Texas and New Mexico. There's the snowstorm for the upper Midwest. And again, this is about 4 to 6 inch swath that's going to be coming across by midweek, when we'll be dealing with those showers and severe storms further to the south. But let's take a look at the setup beyond that, because let's break this thing down for you, because things are going to start to get interesting. Because once we get, say, around December 1st, December 2nd time frame, we're going to be watching Arctic air, true Arctic air coming in from the northwest, but we're also going to be seeing a southeast ridge starting to develop. And that's going to create a battle zone in the midsection of the country. At the same time, we've got above average precipitation. So that is definitely concerning. What's concerning is an icy type setup that could unfold. So here's what it looks like on the 500 millibar as we go into those first couple of days of December. We had a similar type setup like this in an analog back from 2000. I'm picking this out because this is the last time we had a triple dip La Nina, and this is the same type setup. We're in a triple dip La Nina this winter, so this is a definite analog, as well as likely 2013 as well. But this particular setup with this southeast ridge building from the southeast and the northwest Arctic air from the north, what we're going to have is these kind of overrunning conditions as the winds turn around. You've got the warm air rises up in the upper regions 4,000 or 5,000 feet, but Arctic air sinks to the surface. So you get those overrunning setups, and it could fall in the form of freezing rain or an icy mix along this corridor. So we're going to have to be watching this fairly closely as we get into deeper into next week. But here's some of the ensemble member guidance. Now, of course, don't take this verbatim, but we're going to be having to watch this corridor from essentially from Texas to Oklahoma to Arkansas to Missouri back into Illinois, from that kind of where that battle zone is going to be, where that's going to be unfolding. We could be looking at some icy setup all the way down into portions of the southern regions as well, into Texas. So that's definitely something I've got my eye on. Now, beyond that, let's take a look at the overall big picture. So here's the setup on the northern hemisphere view. So we're going to have that ridge. This is around December the 1st, right? So we've got the severe storms that comes across. With that, we've got the southeast ridge is going to be unfolding. We could be looking at an icy mess. But what's happening up in the upper regions is pretty significant, because we're going to have a negative EPO and a negative NAO. You can see the blocking starting to take shape into Alaska as well as into Greenland, while we have the first initial stage of Arctic air coming in from the northwest, setting up that battle zone onto the southern side. But we also have Arctic air further up into the Arctic here, and that right now it's not connected, but it's just waiting for that trigger, because the cold air is going to be bottled up in here. But once this kind of meets together, more or less the dam breaks, and then the Arctic air filters into much more of the lower 48. So if we take a look at the setup in the stratosphere, heading up all the way up into the stratosphere, right now the polar vortex is going to be fairly strong, right? So it's up in the stratosphere. You can see the perfect circle where the colder Arctic air is bundled up into the stratosphere. Now, this is the first, right? So as we move along, this is what it looks like at the surface underneath with the 500 millibar ridge. We've got the southeast ridge on the south side. We got the first initial push of that Arctic air, while the temperature anomalies really enhance into Alaska, into portions of Greenland. But what's significant that comes after that, into the first week of December, for those first 10 days, we start to see a dramatic shift in the polar vortex, where it starts to elongate, and even a possible disruption by then, sending that colder air, breaking that dam in the lower 48, and that will set the stage for a much more significant Arctic air outbreak as we head into, say, that first week of December. So this is when we'll have well above average temperatures in Alaska, well above average temperatures into portions of Greenland. You can see the connection here. There's nothing to stop this Arctic air. And so once we have something like this kind of develop, typically the Arctic air will stay around for a while, because we'll have that funnel that really starts to take shape and trap that colder air, then really kind of set up a much more snowier type pattern for a good probably a week or two at least, or beyond that. But yeah, things can start getting really cold as we get into that second week of December. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm all of the social media sites. And catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after storm.